So let's switch back to one of the more common events. Let's take validate. Validate was again the event happening every time we go out of the field, like up here. If I go in, an event and a validate will happen before that. So let us just add this and see what happens if we just catch every single validate event. So if I'm in here, you'll be able to see that no matter where I press, I will get a validate event because I haven't told what fields I was actually working on. So my filter of the trigger is too small. It's not precise enough. Just say every time something validates within the system on sales order, the event should happen. And that's clearly not what we wanted. So for example, if we only wanted to have that validate event happen when we are on customer reference number, we need to tell the trigger some more. We need, in this case, to tell the trigger that it should only happen when we are, in this case, on item 14. So let's go in here and set it to item 14. And as you can see, when I went out of the delivery field, it didn't cause a validate event. But if I try to go out of the customer reference field, it now causes an event to happen. I can also do these events on line level. So, for example, if I wanted to have it every time I go out of the item number, I could have that do. But in this case, it would be both an item and a column. So you can see that's item 38 and column 1. So if I went now to put in 38, column 1, update again, you'll be able to see I can now go out of my customer reference field because it's not item 14 anymore. And if I choose my item, you'll see my event happens down here now. Row can also be used, so you can see this is row 1 and this is row 2. So for example, if I only wanted to happen on row 2, I could have that happen. So you can see row 1 is okay, but as soon as I get to row 2, it will happen. So the more or the less I need to filter down. The most common is form type and item, but of course column, row can also be used. In the case it's a menu click, I don't need to use the item, column and row. In fact, they are just ignored in that case, but it could be I needed to have a specific menu UID. So that could, as I said before, say I want to make a functionality saying that I am not allowed to switch to fight mode for some reason. So you can see that is menu item 1281. So if we put in 1281, I can now go out of these fields. They are not any part of it. I can click on any menu item, but as soon as I click the find, either here or down here, or actually also if I press the Control F, it will actually also activate this menu. So there's no need in order to catch it in multiple ways because you can do it in multiple ways. So if I press the find button here, you can see it's executed and I'm not switched to find mode. In this case, you might be thinking, well, this is a problem because I just want to have something happen when we go to find mode, but it seems I can't even go to find mode anymore. And that is because we use the before action system. So you can decide should things happen before or after SAP is doing things. And in the case of before, we used a message, and in that we had a block event, meaning we want to do it before and we want to block SAP from going further. If I wanted to do it like this, remove the block event and do it the same, and now switch to find mode, you can see I get my message, but it will still go to find mode. So I can block business 1 if I'm before action. I can also say I just want to have it only happen not before action. That would mean that before, when we were in add mode and pressed, it came up with the message, and after I clicked OK to the message, it went to find mode. In this case, it would be different, because it now switched to find mode behind the scenes here, and then showed the message. So we can time this all depending on how we need the data to be shown. So let's just get rid of this. We can also use that before action. We don't even care if it's before, but we care if it actually went okay for SAP to add the document. So in this case, for example, if we wanted to have that when we pressed our button, add button, it was item pressed, and it was successfully happening, we want to show our message. So if I switch to add mode, choose my button, after I have entered the values, so I press my add button now, you can see it added the data, and then it come up and say now it's executed. What you need to know here is that if you use action success, the data is not more in the screen anymore, and you won't be able to work with that data. So it's very rare that you need to do action success. But you have the option to do it. We just give you the options. Another option we have is the item changed, and that is best shown in a before action and via a validate. So let me just quickly set that up so it validates again now on the customer reference number. So if I do it like this and type in 1, 2, 3, 4 and go out to the field, you can see it executes, and I went out of the field because I didn't block it right now. But what if I went into the field again and went out again using the tab, it will happen again. Item change lets me say that it needs to have a new value before I actually execute it again. So let me just have it like this, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a new value compared to that no value was there before. And if I went out of the field, it now executes. If I went into the field again without changing anything and press tab, you will see that the event didn't happen, and that is because item change needs to be true, and it wasn't true because we didn't change anything. It will only work for fields that are not linked to a tab, where you can press the tab key and get this. It won't, for technical reason, not work in these fields, but for example for the customer reference field, it is possible to do this. Final field we have in here is inner event. Inner event means if it was a user or the system activating the events. So imagine that you have a button. Let's just say this add button. If the user via the mouse goes down and click here, it will be inner event equals false, because inner event was, or the event was activated by the user by itself. The user could also do some functionality where if we put up a button here, some random button, and that button's code behind, the code actually happening behind that would press the button for us. Then it would be code that actually pressed the button. And that would mean that that would be an inner event. So that would mean that if we set it like this trigger would not happen because it was code actually pressing the button, not a user. The rule of thumb on the inner event is you should leave it be, to ignore, unless you use validate, If it's a validate event, you should always set it to false. There's more advanced versions as well, but if you do it like this, validate equals inner event false, and all other events is ignore, then you will cover 99.9% of all scenarios you have. So this is the trigger. A summary would be, we take the different filtering of form type and down to item, column, or even row level if you want to. And if it was a menu item, it was a filter of what menu item was actually pressed. Then we chose the form mode, what mode we were in. The event, what happens, the different we have, all depending on what the user action was. If it would be before SAP did something, or after SAP was done with their work. If the value was actually changed during the event, and if it was done initiated by a user or some kind of code from an add-on. And finally, if the event was of type key down, you could catch here what kind of key it was, if it was a backspace or a tab or a specific key. In later sessions we'll go on to the condition, but for now let's end it here, and I hope you understood the trigger. But again, if you don't understand everything of this, don't be alarmed. Again, the learning curve is high, and you need to work with this in order to really be successful at it. This concludes this session. For training material, please go to service.boyum-it.com/education, or if you want a free demo of the product, go to license.boyum-it.com/b1up. If you want to contact us, you can do it either by our sales email or our support email. Thank you for attending.